Welcome, everyone. This is Brian Shanks, and I am going to introduce everyone to the new podcast that is going to be entertaining on the scoutingthestatline.com. With me tonight is one of the co-creators of the website, Mr. Ross R. Jensen. Ross, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good, man.
A little bit about me. Just jump right into it. Montana boy, sitting up here in the northern states. Not a lot of baseball around here, other than TV stuff like that. We do have Legion ball, but not high school, which is very bizarre. And I didn't know this until the other day that Montana is probably one of the only states that doesn't have high school baseball. Did you know that, Ross?
I did know that, yeah.
That blew me away.
That's probably because I'm from Montana and I've moved out. So
apparently it's coming back next year. Apparently everybody's agreed to bring high school baseball back to Montana.
Wow, it's
a huge deal. Huge. So Mr. Ross, please introduce yourself. Everybody, you are looking at one of two godfathers of the website. Let's hear it, man. What do we got going? What is this? What are we doing?
Scout the Statline. Well, okay. So this idea of Scout the Statline started years ago with my colleague Jordan Rosenblum. We met writing for the Dynasty Guru 2019, and we just he had written this really interesting series on aging curves and how players develop, which really fits with my way of thinking, and also some pieces on major league equivalencies. And he put together this pretty interesting little calculator where you could go in, you could plug in some numbers into the calculator, and it would tell you through different levels. So it had like AAA, AA, single A, rookie level. You could plug in the numbers in there and it would spit out an expected result. So I thought that was really cool, really interesting. I kind of came from, I'm a project manager and an analyst. And at that time I was an analyst and I had a very heavy data background. So I was kind of like, hey, this is really cool. Have you thought about just like applying it so that people to all the minor leaguers so that people can just find the guy that they want and see what the expected results are rather than looking up their stats and plugging them in. So we just kind of collaborated on that and put together what was the original version of the Scout the Statline stuff, which was based on WOBA, peak WOBA. So we've evolved it a lot since then. We have full stat lines that we project out to peak. Just a really fun concept, and I just thought it would be interesting if we also applied some factors to compare players. So like that's where the rank piece comes from. Sometimes people get a little too hung up on the rank piece. It's going to be different depending on your league, but we kind of tried to design it for most 5x5 leagues. So so then we just built in a ranking system as well. So really theoretically, like we could build out projections for every year of their career just using the data that we've got. We haven't gone to that point yet. We really wanted to use it as a system where people could find underrated talent, that we could shine a spotlight on those guys. And one of the strengths I think that our stuff brings is that we can be it's really reactive. It's really just based on stuff that's already happened, right? It's not predicting the future necessarily, except for an average development of those players. But what it really does well is it reacts and it responds to new data. So most of the time when you're looking up traditional rankings, that's a huge undertaking and it takes a lot of time and effort. And those analysts who are very good at what they do, they have to sift through hundreds of players and try to compare them and make a call on whether one guy is better than the other based on whatever factors that they're looking at. Maybe they saw him swinging on YouTube, or they went and got a live look at him, or whatever it might be, but they thought that their swing looked better. Like a lot of those variables, which I think are really hard to Well, they open people up for biases, right? So if you like a certain type of swing, you're going to favor guys that have a swing more like that. So I think that one thing that we do here is we eliminate all of that. It's just data. We're just looking at data. Everybody is, in our eyes, equal. And, we're just going to assume that they're going to develop at an average pace, and this is what it's going to turn out to be. Can it be wrong? Sure, but I think it does a pretty good job, especially with spotlighting guys, and I think that's where we really had a lot of success.
If you haven't sifted through the website, very user friendly. I'm not the complete stat guru that you want to, just crazy into the stats. Yeah, I have more of that feeling sort of play on things like that. I suppose you could call it maybe a little bit of color commentary. That's why I'm here. And I hope I do a good job for you guys. I've known Ross, but yeah, I've known Ross since we were little kids. We both grew up in Shepherd, Montana. I'm still in Montana. Ross is off in Idaho, and I work for an insurance company. High stress stuff. So fantasy baseball really brings me back to ground level and kind of relaxes me. And then I can start, goofing around and having fun. And that's what I really, really enjoy to do. I just like goofing around. With that, speaking of goofing around, I also like beer. I like beer a lot. Drink a lot of beer. So tonight I have some Bent Ale, and this is local beer. This is out of Red Lodge, Montana, and delicious. I was never an IPA fan. Ross actually got me hooked on IPAs. Ross and another buddy of us that is local here got me hooked on IPAs. Never enjoyed them. I was like, God, there's no way I could drink these. But when I'm drinking an IPA, I like them now. What do you got, Ross? What kind of beer you got tonight?
All right, so you mentioned IPAs, and that's a big thing up here, especially going back probably 8 years, 10 years ago. Pacific Northwest is just really known for their hops. So I got a beer here, but this is not a Pacific Northwest beer. This is Dogfish Head 90-minute Imperial IPA. So it's pretty strong stuff. I've had it before. I really like it. But they're out of Delaware. So I went totally to the other side of the country just to snag a beer and drink it here.
Did you have to go to how'd you find this beer from Delaware? What's it doing in Idaho?
They're getting pretty popular. I think going back a couple of years ago, they were pretty hard to find. I don't know if you've ever seen it around. They might not be delivering to Montana yet, but no, this was just, you can walk into the grocery store and get one of these nowadays. So they're pretty well distributed. Of course, they have different versions of this. They have the 90-minute IPA, and then they have the 60-minute IPA and the 120-minute. But yeah, very good beer. So I'm excited to dig into it. So these are breakout prospects from 2022. That's what I targeted on here. My first one is a guy I really like that I had targeted last year originally, Evan Carter. So Evan Carter, I think, is a tremendous ball player all around. He has actually been on a bit of a heater. He's finishing the year. He's risen all the way to Double-A, and the guy has just been smoking, and he's moved all the way up to number 3 on our rankings. We just updated those this morning, and Evan Carter is floating right to the top, and he sports really strong, healthy strikeout or walk rates. His strikeout rates are very manageable. So, and he does a little bit of everything. He can steal bases. He can hit for some pretty solid power. Solid batting average.
Is he 21 yet?
He just turned 20. So this is his age 19 season.
Yeah, already in baseball sites. Already in Double-A. That's massive.
Yep. I think he's going to be pretty special. I don't know if we're looking at like, a superstar in the league with Evan Carter, but I think it's a guy that can, he can perform all around, and he's going to help your team out in a lot of ways. So I really like him right now. Statline, he's batting .295. This is aggregate on the season. It's a .397 OBP and a .489 slugging percentage. So he's pretty awesome. If you have an opportunity to get this guy, I think he's still a little underrated. He's starting to get up there on the prospect list, in the 50 range. I think is where I've seen him. But if you can get him for 50 range player prices, I think you're getting him at a good value.
Cool. It's good
Who do
stuff.
You got, Brian?
My first one's going to be my pitcher. I'm going to jump right into a pitcher right away. And it's somebody that I acquired this year that was kind of a throw-in. I liked him, but he was kind of a throw-in. And it's Kai Bush. Kai Bush for the Angels. And big guy. And I kind of like my pitchers that way, my fantasy teams don't really reflect this, but I'd like to see the bigger pitchers on my team just for durability concerns, because it's such a crapshoot with pitchers, and it's so hard to predict what's going to happen with their bodies. So I really want to move towards that bigger side, and he's 6'6", 240, and he's 22 years old. Came up into Double-A this year. Everything about him, like his whip is at 1.18, and he's pitched. He's got 21 games started in Double-A, and 103 innings pitched with a 1.18 whip. Good strikeout percentage, low walks, and then the durability's there. There's something about Kai Bush that is really going to start exciting people. He's 22 years right now. Maybe we see a cup of coffee next year. Probably realistically, he'll be in AAA all of next year with a call up to the Angels in 2024.
So the second player I have highlighted on here is a guy that I also have been a big fan of for the last 2 years, late last season and into this year, and that's Edgar Quero. And he's a catcher. He similar to what I like about Evan Carter. He walks at a pretty healthy rate. The guy is just a hitting machine. And I highlighted him last year in my prospect highlights on the Dynasty Guru. And I did that because he came in short season player last season. And he was like lights out when he first entered the league. And he was just on a heater, and it was impossible to ignore. So I wrote him up, and then he cooled down significantly. He got a promotion to single A, and, caught up with him as he was at that talent level. So he repeated the level this year, 515 plate appearances, a 965 OPS. He's a high riser. And he'll even chip in some stolen bases, hitting for power, getting on base. He's looking like another Studley catcher, and what's looking like a long line of Studley catchers that are out there right now, which is awesome. The catcher renaissance.
Yeah, it's certainly. Me and Ross, we talk quite a bit about this. We do have another podcast that we do for our main league that we kind of goof around with and stuff like that. It's a little bit more relaxed. But yeah, we've talked about that catcher renaissance. There are some just absolute talent coming through the catcher ranks right now, all the way from 17-year-olds to 23-year-olds. And they're all uber athletic. They all have bats. Some of them have power. Some of them have speed. Some of them, we're going to see some things coming from the catchers in the next 6 years that we haven't seen maybe ever.
Yeah, at least in a very long time. And I want to throw this out there. because I've heard a lot of people be like, well, they're catchers, and that diminishes their value in those people's eyes. And my point of view is that these are not like, I'm not targeting these guys because they're catchers. I'm targeting these guys because they're hitters.
Yeah.
They're really talented hitters. And if they don't stay behind the plate, they will play somewhere else. And we're starting to see now with a lot of players, they were doing this with Adley Rutschman a little bit. And you see it with Dalton Varsho, where, when he's not behind the plate, and they might just be moving Dalton Varsho, but with Rutschman, they were giving him a lot of time at first base. So you might see this where they dual positions to give him a rest, but to make sure that bat isn't there. So my advice, I don't know everything, but don't sleep on the catchers just because they're catchers. If they're good hitters, they're still guys that you want on your team, and they'll find a way to get them into the lineup for the quality of their bat. So really excited. One more thing I want to say about Cuero. He gets a comp on Scout the Statline to Alex Bregman, and I think that's pretty high praise. So I just wanted to highlight that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good stuff. But yeah, with what you were saying with the catchers and stuff like that, we're going to see a lot more Buster Posey's, and not to that extreme. I don't want to say that these guys are all Hall of Famers, but Buster, catcher, on his off days could play first, and then when he could DH, he could do all that good stuff. So you could get those breaks in there, still get your putouts, still get your assists, stuff like that. So yeah, I completely second that. I think catchers need to be targeted a little bit more. And I think there's some deep sleepers, some guys that we're not going to talk about for a while, that are in there that you guys can go pick up, and, that maybe some future stuff. I don't know, maybe a little tease.
Oh, and there's another Cuero that has been pretty hot to finish the season, Jefferson Cuero, also a catcher. And he's got a 780 OPS. I'm looking at it right now, and he's 19 years old in high A and has been improving throughout the season. So that's another Cuero to keep your eyes on. Personally, I like Edgar Cuero a little bit better, especially for the plate approach. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with the Cueros right now.
For sure. My second guy, and maybe this isn't much of a breakout because he was a first rounder, drafted 22nd overall by the White Sox, but Colson Montgomery. And I drafted this guy this year. I love Colson Montgomery. He's got some cool stuff going on. Right now, his average is sitting at 274, on base percentage 381. He's hit 11 bombs. He's 20 years old. He got called up to Double-A not very long ago. He's got 48 at bats in Double-A right now, and I think the world is his oyster. He's probably going to be a third baseman for the White Sox. I don't know that for sure. He's a big body guy. He's 6'4", 205. Colson Montgomery is really high on my list throughout whatever kind of fantasy you want to be playing right now. And in real life, he's going to be a solid player. The stolen bases aren't there, but he does have some speed. And that'll show up, I think. Maybe he'll slow down because he's 6'4", 205, fill out that body, get up to 225 or so. And maybe he won't have any stolen bases, but power for days, average looks really good. He's a guy that you're going to want to have on your rosters before he absolutely explodes.
All right, that's a good one. Okay, so I have my pitcher to go over, and I don't know if I've dug quite as deep as you on some of these picks because I was really thinking the big breakouts, and so for my pitcher I went with Andrew Painter, and I think this guy is arguably the best pitching prospect in the minor leagues right now. He's a superstar. I mean, he's gone through 3 levels this year. The guy is just a strikeout machine. He doesn't seem to walk very many batters at all. And he's done it across A, high A, double A. I mean, big guy, 6'7". He was, 13th overall pick in last year's draft. He has ace upside, in my opinion. And I think, he may end up being the most successful pitcher out of the minor leagues right now. I want to highlight some of the stats. On the season total, he's got a 1.56 ERA. He's got a whip that's 0.887. That's insane. And a strikeout rate of 13.5 Ks per 9 innings, while only walking 2.2. So I think he's ridiculously talented, and I think he's, if for some reason your league isn't quite as high on this guy, he's somebody you want to go get. No doubt about it in my mind. Brian,
the only downfall that Painter?
Is he the best pitching prospect?
Yes.
In the minors?
Yes.
Apologies to Grayson Rodriguez. He's a stud as well. But I think Andrew Painter is the best pitching prospect in the minors.
I think I agree with you.
Really close, though. Yeah, I'm just looking at Grayson Rodriguez's stats now. I'm like second guessing.
He's pretty ridiculous.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on to my next highlight. I got a 24-year-old. The reason that I probably don't feel so strongly about this one is he plays for the Rays, plays for the Tampa Bay Rays. And, man, the Rays are loaded. When they have a prospect, it's so hard to decide if you want to keep a hold of these guys because you don't know if they're ever going to stay with the organization, for one, and how long are they going to sit in the minors before they're actually going to get called up. This is, like I said, this is a 24-year-old, 6 foot, 210, Jonathan Aranda. His stats are looking good. He's always hit at every place that he's been at. Rookie year in 2016, maybe down a little bit, but sitting in AAA right now in 2022, batting .318, on base .394, slugging .521, OPS .915, strikes out at about 25%, which is okay. I'm okay with the 25%. Anything above that, I think you have to start getting worried. But at 25, I think they can kind of figure it out and start bringing it down a little bit. And he's hit 18 bombs, 4 stolen bases. He's never going to be a stolen base guy. Let's not kid ourselves. But the power might be there. 2021, he batted .330 with an on base of .418, OPS of .961. I don't think a lot of people know who this guy even is. And I think it's a fault of the Rays that he's not known more because they're so loaded. Like, if he was on any other team, he's probably in the bigs right now. He's probably in the bigs. He's probably starting at any position that he wants to. Unfortunately, the Rays, they got some good stuff cooking. Do you know anything about Jonathan Aranda?
I do, and I'm glad you picked him because I think he's an interesting player as well. I like him. But I want to point something out, and I got to give a little background context to this. Brian, friend of mine going way back, and we play in the same hometown fantasy league we have for over a decade now, going on 12, 13 years, however long it's been. And we used to give Brian a hard time all the time for Neil Walker. Walker, it seemed like every type of player that Brian loved was Neil Walker. And who do you think that this guy's comp is on Scout the Statline right now?
I better trade for him. I better trade for him right now.
You better go get him. No, I really do like Aranda. I think he's a talented player. He's 24, so he's a little older for, the prospect circles. I think you're probably spot on. The biggest issue for him is going to be playing time. The Rays are pretty stacked, and they like to use guys in unorthodox ways. So the flip side of that is he's probably going to have eligibility all over the place for your team, but getting consistent plate appearances might be a struggle for a while. And they get into that situation, and they sometimes trade those types of guys too, and that might be good for Aranda if that happened, like Nate Lowe this year as an example.
What's going to happen next year? Is he going to be able to hold on to a roster spot, or is he going to get wasted in AAA for a full year, maybe before he gets traded? It's just so hard to tell with the Rays. It's tough.
Agreed. But he's a player I like, and I'm glad you highlighted him.
On a side note, Neil Walker was the frickin' man. Moving on.
Solid player all around.
This next guy that I want to kind of point out a little bit is probably somebody that I've never even really thought about. And once again, he's a Tampa Bay Ray. But Shane Sasaki, he's a 22-year-old out of Honolulu, Hawaii, third rounder, 99th overall. This guy's stats are blowing me away. He's got 47 stolen bases this year, and 9 bombs. I'm sure we discount 9 bombs because everybody can hit a home run nowadays. But when you're swiping 47 bags and then hitting 9 bombs, it's a big deal. Not to mention his average is at 324.
Yeah.
What do you know about Shane Sasaki? Because I'll be completely honest, I was ignorant until, I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he's a guy I know a little bit about, but I haven't followed real closely. Right now he's number 47 on Scout the Statline. I have a tendency to discount stolen base numbers from the minors a little bit more because I feel like it's the translation to the major leagues is kind of a spurious relationship like that. You don't really know. Asturio Ruiz, as an example, he's got 75 stolen bases in the minors. He's going to steal 75, maybe next year after the rule changes, which we'll talk about later. But, maybe, but in today's current game, I don't know if I see that. But still, you can't completely disregard it. 47 stolen bases, 47 stolen bases in 402 plate appearances. Solid all-around numbers. He gets a comp to, this might be a bit of a red flag, to Cameron Maben, who Maben was as you know, was a top prospect, back in the day, but he just never quite found his groove in the major leagues. I think he might have had 1 or 2 effective seasons, but by and large, I don't know that I would say he lived up to the expectations, which is pretty hard.
Yeah, he was a top tenner. Yeah, Cameron Maben was a top tenner, and I believe I owned him for a long time. We're going to jump into some storylines. Some storylines of 2022 that were either fun or just impressive or just something that caught your brain that you were just excited about. I have one, and this one I'm a Tigers fan. I'm a big Tigers fan. I always have been. I don't know why. My favorite players were Frank Thomas, Kirby Puckett. But I've always been a really big Tigers fan. And it's really, really sad to me that Miggy is – if he comes back next year, I'd be shocked. But I think he's done. And then Pujols, too. I think Pujols is done. That's an end of an era. Man.
Storybook finish, though. Chasing 700. Yeah. I hope he gets it, and it's looking like there's a pretty decent possibility of that happening now.
Yeah. Are we 3 away? Is he at 697?
I think he's at 698 right now.
98. Okay.
So 2 to go.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. That one just kind of disheartens me a little bit. Miggy's probably a top 5 player of mine of all time as far as a fandom is concerned.
Personal favorite, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And then Pujols is so gosh darn good, and kind of sad.
I think back to Pujols when he was coming up, and the first 10 years of his career, he was in that conversation for, this might be one of the greatest we've ever seen. And he still is. Like, he is one of the greatest we've ever seen. But, at that time, I'm thinking like Babe Ruth and, Barry Bonds, if you can look past the checkered, question mark history, which, I do. But, like, some people have a hard time with that. If you can look past that, like, that's the kind of conversation. I mean, I don't think he's quite at that tier, but he's just like one tier below. And the first 10 years of his career were legendary. I mean, that guy is awesome. They're not to get into controversial subjects, but there's been a lot of speculation about, like, he's juicing or something like that this season. What's your feelings on that?
I really, so with the Bonds, the Pete Rose, all the controversy and stuff like that, the steroids and the gambling and what have you, I really don't give a shit. I really don't. Like, you have to be an impeccable athlete to be able to hit a baseball like that. Whether you're juicing, I don't remember who said it to me back when we were younger, but you can't put a steroid in an eye. And you can't. If you can see a baseball, you're impressive, because nobody's hitting those kind of home runs like Barry Bonds did. And then, with Pete Rose, so what? He gambled. Get over it. These guys are the best baseball players that have ever lived. And you're not going to put them in the Hall of Fame? Get the hell out of here. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox there, but that's my true feelings about it.
No, we're here for the hot takes, man.
Yeah.
I want to say a piece on this, and I don't want to get too controversial by any means. Yeah. I hope that if you listen to this and you hate my opinions, you can still find value in the statistical stuff we do. But I do want to say this about Pujols, because I'm going to have opinions. I'm a very opinionated person, but with Pujols, I feel like that's just massive disrespect to a tremendous career. Yeah. And I go back to the concept of innocent until proven guilty. Don't make assumptions that this guy is juicing just because he's hitting the ball well. Yeah. I've seen this before. I've seen this story before where a guy has a late career, one season resurgence, and then it's time to hang it up, So from my perspective, this is not anything that's that abnormal that you need to jump to that kind of conclusion. I think that it's storybook. It's fun. It's good. And maybe he's getting some meatballs thrown at him or whatever, but who cares? It's fun. And I'm enjoying watching it. And, good luck, Pujols. I hope he gets
and he knows it's the end. So maybe he's got a little bit more juice in his arms. He's like, this is all I got. I'm going to throw it all out there now. It's not like he's got a batting average of 300 or something. Like he's batting like 220. So those pitches that he does hit, or I don't know what it is.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but those pitches that he is going for, man, he's going all out.
Yeah, I've just pulled him up. Okay, somewhere in between 256, but he's slugging 513.
That's really, really good.
yeah, 19 home runs on the season. So it's not like he's playing out of it. It's not like, he's not like prime Pujols, but
but
it's pretty cool.
I would guarantee there's about 600 people that would kill for a career of 256 and 19 home runs every year.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, yeah. What about other storylines from the season? I want to highlight one. Aaron Judge. I've not been a huge fan of him necessarily, but man, this guy just won't slow down. he's hitting bombs every night. Like I check out the box score. Since I was like a little kid, I just loved looking at box scores. And I'm just saying, like, every night it's like 2 more home runs from Aaron Judge. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, he's on fire. He's on fire.
And I think he's got a shot at a Triple Crown this year. Okay, so I've got it up here, and it looks like Luis Arraez is the leader in the American League at 317. Judge is at 316.
Ooh, so it is darn close.
Razor close. Yep. So that's an exciting one. I don't think anyone's talking about, threatening the home run crown, the single season title or anything like that. That seems like a serious long shot, but you gotta take a bow. That's what I think. It's a pretty incredible season he's having.
Yep. No, I agree. And I need to give him more props than I usually do because he is a bona fide superstar. But with that, is he the MVP?
You read my mind. I was going to say, let me segue right into this because there's still an MVP conversation here with Shohei Ohtani, who's been doing things that, we haven't really seen ever in baseball before. I think Judge is the MVP this year, but I think Ohtani, anyone that's arguing that, like, it should be Ohtani, okay, like, I'm not going to fight with you too much. You're right. Like, the guy has been doing incredible things on both ends, and the value that adds to a team is insane. I still think wins above replacement is a really good comparative metric for this particular case because he's getting credit from both sides. He's a little bit lower than Judge, so I'm going with Judge in this conversation. But how about this? Here's something to think about, and this is really important. He takes up 1 roster spot.
Yeah.
You don't get any credit in wins above replacement for just taking up 1 spot rather than, needing to have 2 spots taken for the same production.
Yeah.
So
you're going to be wrong no matter what, like Judge or Ohtani.
Yeah.
Like normally I would say, it's clear that Barry Bonds is the MVP. It's clear that Pujols is the MVP. It's clear. There's no clearness here.
There's been those controversies before, like, Alex Rodriguez won with the Rangers one year, and people were up in arms about that because the Rangers were not very good that year. He was the best player on a crappy team, so how valuable is that, or whatever it might be. We have that sometimes with the Cy Young too. Anyway,
I just think it's different because of what Ohtani does. Is what I was getting at.
You got to pick one. Who you picking?
A Judge.
Okay.
I can't believe I said that.
Okay, I want to use this since we're talking about Ohtani. I want to use this to talk about my personal favorite storyline going on right now. And this is a good segue for a transition to talking about Munetaka Murakami. And I probably just butchered that name. I don't know, but I love this guy. And he's chasing the Nippon League, Nippon Baseball, Professional Baseball League home run record right now. He's at 55. The record is 60. And I'm really excited about this. I love waking up in the morning because I don't get to watch these games, but I get to see some highlights when I wake up. Checking my phone, seeing highlights of him hitting dingers. I think this guy could come over to the MLB at some point and be a serious impact player. The type of home runs he hits, these are like no doubters. There's something about it, like he's just got it. He's dialed in. And he knows how to do it. And he's been doing it since he was 18. He's 22 now. He's threatening that record. I think he would come over as the number 1 prospect if he was a prospect next year.
How many games? How many games does he have left?
I don't know exactly. Last I saw it was like 13.
And he needs 5 more.
He needs 5 more.
Okay.
My favorite thing that's going on right now in baseball is watching that.
It's new. It's new, and probably a lot of people aren't connected to that. So I like that. I think that's kind of fun.
It's not MLB. I cheated a little bit, but I just had to touch on it just a little bit.
I like it.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's jump into probably what I'm going to like the most is favorite breakout prospects for 2023.
I'm going a little bit out on a limb on this one because I'm not 100% confident in it, but I really like what I'm seeing from Hector Rodriguez right now. And so he's my prospect highlight. He was signed by the Mets out of the Dominican, and they traded him to the Reds this year. So I'm highlighting a Reds player. For those of you that don't know, the Reds are my favorite team. I have a love-hate relationship with them. I usually avoid trying to roster those players on my teams. So talking about a little bias, maybe it's anti-bias for me of Reds prospects. I try to avoid them. But he's with the Cincinnati Reds now. And what I really like about this guy, he's got really low strikeout rates. I love the bat. The bat is it's looking like it could be a top shelf sort of bat. It doesn't walk very much. So there's some risk. I don't think he's going to be a high OBP player. He's probably better for average leagues, but I think he puts the ball in play very well. He hits it with a decent amount of authority. He's got some power in his swing, and he can steal some bases. So I think this guy is going to be a really good all-around player. He's at second base, I believe. Center field, outfield, and second base, mostly in the outfield now. But I think he's a really interesting, if you're looking for somebody that's deeper dynasty leagues, he's a guy that you want to probably look at targeting right now before, well, if he does get that breakout, you're not going to be able to afford him.
That's good stuff.
Who do you got?
Mine is my favorite player right now.
In the majors,
out of all minors, out of all prospects, out of all of them, this is my favorite player. And I drafted him last year. And I want to introduce you to the Mr. Basketball of Wisconsin, standing at 6'5", 210 pounds, AJ Vukovic. This guy's easily my favorite player. He's 6'5", and he weighs 210 pounds. He's got 52 stolen bases in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
and his average over 2 years is 274. His on-base percentage is 314. OPS is a little small with 761, but he's got 30 bombs over 2 years. He's incredible. He just got promoted to Double-A just a couple months ago. He's got 44 at-bats in Double-A. He's batting .295. He's hit a couple dingers. He had 35 stolen bases in High A, in A+ this year. At 6'5".
Yeah. So he's not a guy that ranks super high on Scout the Statline. He's at 298 overall right now. He's got a bit of a strikeout problem. I shouldn't say problem, like that's not real well developed at the moment. But he does seem to make good contact when he does. The home runs, the stolen bases are there. What do you see from him? What do you think his?
I think he's the third baseman of the Diamondbacks' future. We might even see Vukovic. Nah, he's probably not going to see a cup of coffee, but he's going to be AAA next year at 22 years old, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Well, I hope that works out for you. All right, well, let's wrap into our finale of the episode and give the people what they want. What do the people want, Brian?
They want bold predictions for 2023. They want to know the smartest guys on the planet are thinking. So we're going to segue this to Elon Musk. Elon, would you please come on? Oh no, that wasn't real.
Yeah. Nice one.
So my bold, it's not the smartest man on the planet, but my bold predictions for next year, and I got 3 of them. Josh Young, which is one of my favorite prospects of all time, wins Rookie of the Year in 2023. Do you have anything against that, Ross? Josh Young is going to be a monster.
I mean, what about somebody like Gunnar Henderson?
No, he won't even sniff his stats. Come on.
I don't know. Grayson Rodriguez. I think there's a lot of interesting candidates in the AL for Rookie of the Year. So I don't know if I can sign off on that one quite yet.
Everybody go pick up Josh Young. Trade for him. Whatever you got to do, get Josh Young. He's going to be unbelievable. My second one, Aaron Judge does not sign with the Yankees. And I don't even know. Okay. I don't even know if I believe this one. Like the Yankees, the Yankees are not letting him get out the door, right? They're just not going to do it.
I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here right now, and I'm telling you, Judge will not be a Yankee next year.
Who would be the top candidate to sign him?
The Mets. And can you imagine that complete meltdown that New York fans would have? Yeah, he's gonna be a Met next year.
That's a hot take. Yeah,
it's huge. And my third and final one, Jazz Chisholm finally stays healthy and is a complete monster next year. Like 35 home runs, 30 stolen bags, close to touching 300 average, just crushes everything and wins the MVP.
Okay. All right. There we go. Brian's bold predictions. I don't know that I have anything quite that bold. So I'm going to just throw out what I think. I think Wander Franco is going to win a batting title next year.
That's a bold take, man.
Well, he's somebody that I think everybody that knows me knows that I am pretty infatuated with his bat. I think we're going to finally see it next year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think, let's see, what else do I want to touch on? I'm going to go with some. Oh, okay. How about this? In the AL, the Rookie of the Year is going to be not Josh Young or Jung, whatever, but Curtis Mead. Rookie of the Year.
So with that, guys, I want to wish you a good night, a hearty farewell. If you guys want to reach out to us, our Twitter handles are at Brian59044, and Ross's is
Ross Jensen 12, at Ross Jensen
12. And let us know what you guys think. Do you like the website? Are we completely off base with bold predictions or things that we've said tonight? But I got to tell you, Ross, I really enjoyed it, man. I think this is something good, and we can have some fun. Maybe next time we can get Riley Green on the podcast. We can talk about how awesome he's going to be next year for the Tigers. What else you got?
So this offseason, we've got a lot of enhancements in the pipeline at Scout the Statline. Really excited for it. It's a project I love working on. So, I hope we can continue advancing this, and I hope it's helpful to people. But some of the things that we're looking at is, first and foremost, is pitching translations. We know that's critical for people in their fantasy teams. We're working on it. the correlation between pitching translations and batting translations is just not as strong, and we know that. So that's why that's been a little more delayed, but we're going to roll that out. Really excited for what that's going to look like. And hopefully we can commingle those rankings together, so you'll be able to see them mix, where Painter fits in the whole picture, where Grayson Rodriguez fits in the whole picture. Is he a top 5 prospect like you see at other places? Is he a little bit lower? We're going to find out. So that's the biggest thing, but we got other things that we're trying to work on too. We're really trying to improve a lot of the stuff in the background as well. You touched on the player details, or the player cards, whatever we're going to call that. That's critical. It's going to take a little while before we get there. And I'm really thinking that I think we can push all of our flagship updates, and by that I mean the top projected hitters. Right now it's called the top projected hitters. Probably change the name when we add pitchers in there. Top projected prospects. Those are really our 2 most popular pages that we have, and for good reason. They're the ones that are the most advanced and take a little bit more work to get ready. But I think we can push that to daily updates. We're really going to push hard on automation, making everything work like just fast. So we're going to try to do some stuff like that. So we'll see. We're going to push hard on all fronts, trying to make this the best site that you can imagine for what we're trying to do. Not your typical sort of fantasy baseball website, but we're hoping it's a place where you can find lots of nuggets of information that you can't really find anywhere else. So really excited for it. And I'm thrilled about this podcast. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully we can get in some guests and make this a regular recurring piece.
I agree. And I appreciate you having me do it, Ross. I'm just a guy that doesn't know anything about anything, and I fake it till I make it. But I would assume in the future that we're going to be better than a website that starts with an E and maybe ends with an SPN. But I think we're they have great content. I just want to be a part of it. I want to make things fun, maybe a little bit more colorful, rather than the stats that are just right there in front of you. And I appreciate all your guys' time. And we're going to see you again real soon.